Hi, welcome to Portage County Matters. I'm Patty Dreier, Portage County Executive. Great to be back and to be with you here for a show that I'm sure will be very interesting. For most of us, have no idea about way cool background information related to symphony orchestras, and certainly our Central Wisconsin Symphony Orchestra is a gem here in Portage County and Central Wisconsin, so it's going to be fun to share that story and have everybody learn a little bit more about what makes it so awesome here for us. I want to thank Jamie Gabert for taking the show responsibilities for me last month. I was in my initial stages right after my rotator cuff surgery in my shoulder. So she interviewed Judge Flugar. Thanks to both of them for keeping the ball rolling. And that's really what we're all about anyway, is making sure that we keep moving ahead. So thanks, Jamie, for that. I have two news notes, and then I'd like to get to our guest today. The two notes relate to groundwater and the county budget for 2018. Let's start with the county budget. The budget process, by the time this show airs in November, will be finished anyway, and you can see a copy of the final Portage County 2018 budget on the county's website under the Department of Finances page. We break it into a number of pieces so that it's easier to download, a number of chapters and so on. So that's why it's not on the home page. So please, if you have an interest in doing that, go to the county's website, co.portage.wi.us, and you can click on Finance Department and download a copy of your county budget. If you have questions about it, you still want to learn more, and you haven't already contacted our office, I hope that you'll do so. I'd love to sit down with you. We'll make sure that we can get any questions answered. It's your money, it's your budget. And then final news note before we get to my guest is related to groundwater, as I mentioned. Our countywide groundwater quality study is completed. The report is being finalized at this moment, but what we do know right now is that 25% of the wells across Portage County are over the public health drinking water standard. And that's a real concern to a lot of us, those that are concerned about the health of our citizenry, about pregnancy and healthy babies, about the cost of at-home treatment systems to bring down the nitrates at that 25% over the public health standard for nitrates in drinking water concern, and then also about the home values of folks that have treatment systems or have high nitrates in their drinking water and then may have difficulty when they want to put their property on the market. These are just a few of the concerns. As Jamie had mentioned last month, yes, indeed, I will be scheduling, as soon as this report is completed, we'll be scheduling public meetings about this concern across the county. We'll probably do, I'm going to guess, 5 different sessions out in various corners of the county and teach people about what the results are in that particular area. And then as we look to the future, in the budget, I had put in $5,000 in the planning and zoning budget so that over the next 5 years, accruing $5,000 each year, we would then have enough money in that fund to do the next countywide nitrate and drinking water study for a quality marker across the county. I'm hoping that that will have been retained in the budget, and we'll see where we go from here. But anyway, know that groundwater quality is on the radar. We're going to continue to make progress. We must. Thank you, everybody. Now, I'd like to turn attention to my guest, Ann Huntoon. She's the executive director of the Central Wisconsin Symphony Orchestra. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity to sit with you and learn a little bit more about the county and what goes on in this building. This is very cool.
Yeah, the city of Stevens Point has this lovely resource that they dedicate to getting information out to the people, and we're grateful on the county side of things as well for, it's a really great resource. The radio station, in addition to the television cable access, the videos and so on that are put on the city's website for folks to access for more information has really been a huge help as it's continued to evolve over the time that I've been in office.
That's terrific. I can also thank the City of Stevens Point for our offices as well. We inhabit the Scarabocchio Art Museum, which some people don't realize that that's a city-owned and operated facility right here in downtown Stevens Point.
And it's one of my favorite places.
It is a great place to be. Yep, lots of great history, and way back, even before it was a bakery, but I love it when somebody comes in and said, I used to come in with my grandfather to get a donut on Saturday morning, and then they proceed with a story or two. But it is a terrific resource that we love making available for the community, and we also love having our operations there as well.
And I'm glad that you're there because you give it a new life right now, an opportunity to have folks step in the door and have other kinds of experiences. I used that space when I had my own business actually, and held workshops in that space because it was such a remarkable area for workshops.
The first year that we were there, it was August, and I had just come back from summer vacation, and I, as I would, scheduled 3 meetings that day, and I was running around getting ready for the third. I think it was a strategic planning meeting, and a couple stepped in the door, and we didn't have anything on the walls. We were getting ready to put an exhibit up, and I kind of apologized and said, I'm sorry, I'm getting ready for a meeting, and come back on September 14th and we'll have an opening for our next show. And they said, well, we're really not interested in seeing the artwork, but we owned this building before it was purchased by Dr. Smith, and they were the bakers. And so we went from the top to the basement, and they were full of stories about how the eggs would come in from the street down in the basement, and the fact that there was a semi-load full of flour stacked in the back room upstairs. And when the building inspector saw that, he said, this building is sound. And so anyway, lots of great stories like that.
Fabulous. Well, Anne, with your role with the Central Wisconsin Symphony Orchestra, I mean, I just see you as the face of an awesome organization. I find the symphony to be one of the treasures, one of my favorite kinds of activities to be able to do with people that I love, to sit in a concert and enjoy such high quality performances of all different kinds. And it's like bringing the world to our doorstep.
Well, that's a high compliment, that's for sure. And while I really appreciate you saying that I'm the face of the orchestra stands on its own. I'm so happy to be part of the orchestra, and I'm honored to play flute, so I have the best seat in the house. I'm right in the middle of the orchestra when we have a concert. And I can tell you my history. My husband and I moved to Marshfield in 1985, and I had never lived in small town, but my ancestors were from northern Wisconsin, and we actually moved here from Cleveland, Ohio. And I was thrilled that I could drive and be out in the country in 5 minutes, and it was just a beautiful place to be. And that I had heard that there was this great university here in Central Wisconsin. And some friends of ours who, he was working for Associated Bank, had tickets to the Central Wisconsin Symphony Orchestra. And I had a great interest in music. I had played in an orchestra, in a community orchestra, several years prior to that. And they brought us to a concert, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is right here. So all of these benefits of living in small town, large medical facility, university, and there was a symphony orchestra, and I thought, someday I might be able to have season tickets to this. Never thinking that I would be able to play in it. And also then having this role of being an administrator for I have a friend that calls her orchestra, her community regional orchestra, her darling orchestra. And I have the same sentiment, I think, and I've always felt that way. But it is not every community that can support an orchestra where every single player is paid a stipend, and that we get to perform literature that you aren't going to hear until you go down to Madison, over to the Fox Valley, and Milwaukee. So we have a very special place right here in Central Wisconsin. Well,
I've been there and heard the Vienna
then
Symphony play, so I'm telling you.
You've got one up on me. I did. I was,
Field trip.
yeah. Just last Thursday, I was privileged to go to a concert in David Geffen Hall now of the New York Philharmonic, and it's such a great thing. You know, here it was Thursday night, and the place was packed, and they were going to do the same concert 2 more nights, 2 consecutive nights, and I thought, I knew the piano concerto because I've been able to play it. I was in the orchestra when we had a piano soloist playing the Schumann. And so I feel very privileged to have this role, and also to have, for the past 20 years, been playing in the orchestra.
Wow. Anne, so let's see, you've been executive director since 2010.
Yep. So we have,
Side by side.
yeah, who knew until now?
Yeah, seriously, we never figured that out until we were sitting here right before
Yeah.
the show. And I have to say, you've made it real for a lot of us that never had a chance to connect the same way. And I know that's one of the things we wanted to talk about today related to the symphony. How is it interconnected with our community? But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the questions that folks may have who are listening to the show. And I know I am filled with a lot of them, like how many members are in the Central Wisconsin Symphony Orchestra? Let's start with that one.
Sure, our basic roster is between 75 and 80 musicians that are on the stage, and depending on what the literature is that we're doing at that particular time. Some of our members have been there much, much longer than my 20-year tenure, and some of them are students at the university. We are very fortunate to have the Department of Music and a strong affiliation with the College of Fine Arts and Communication. We have a scholarship string quartet, and those are our youngest players. Occasionally we will have a very accomplished high school student that will be on our roster as well. So those connections with the campus are vital.
Yes,
and
definitely.
yeah, and we also provide a great outlet for university professors to perform literature that they would have to travel elsewhere to perform.
Or like the concert we just attended in October, it could be the opportunity to have the music that they composed
Correct.
be
Yeah.
played
Yeah. Now that's
by that symphony
Yep.
orchestra, which is just fabulous. This is the second time that I've seen one recently that had a world premiere of new composition.
Right, and that's a really important thing for orchestra of any size to do. Now, we are on the low end of the budget for orchestras across the country. They're designated by groups. So group 1 would be New York Philharmonic, Chicago, Milwaukee's a group 1. We don't even get our own group. We're group 7-8, and actually we're group 7B. There's 7A and 7B in group 8. Group 8 is all volunteer, so that's kind of where we fall in the scheme. So for us to be able to afford to commission a piece of music, and with the commission that we had by Roger L. Nelson, Forest Escapades.
I thought that was amazing.
Yes, yeah, and just this Forest Reflections. No, it was Forest Reflections. I'm so sorry, Roger. Forest Reflections, and this was a very personal venture for Roger Nelson, and so we had the opportunity, and I would say that I even had more of an opportunity than anybody else to watch this artistic process unfold. And a composer, when they're doing something as personal as that, and I like to compare it to taking a zipper and just opening yourself, because it's you're constantly critiquing what you're doing. But the colors that he used, and the themes, and then also keeping in mind that we had it premiered by our concertmaster, Steve Biella, who has played with the Chicago Symphony. So that's the breadth of talent that we have, and commitment to what we're doing.
So, all right, we've talked about the numbers of people who are in the orchestra. I could see, for example, that you didn't play at the last one, so it depends on the pieces and what the demand is for various kinds of instruments for those concerts. How does one become the person in the chair with the violin or the oboe or the bassoon or whatever.
Right. Well, back to me not playing the first concert, that broke my heart. I love the Dvorak No. 8. That's one of my favorite things to play, and I, for personal reasons, had to opt out of playing this first concert. So we had a sub that was able to come in, and that's the beauty again of being a regional orchestra, because you can pull from a lot of different resources to do what you need to do. That being said, we hold auditions every spring. As a regional orchestra, you have that opportunity to know who your personnel are, and I would have to say that every single player on that stage wants to be there, that we are committed to being there and doing what we're doing, and we're great friends. There is, I can't tell you that I know of any competition among our players, so it's not that kind of ensemble. I look at that as a benefit of not being in a union wage orchestra, that we can do what we do and enjoy every moment of it without the fear that your seat is going to be taken away or something like that. We do hold auditions. The scholarship string quartet that I mentioned earlier is for university students. They are at the top of their game as a college student and playing, and they do audition every year for the honor of being that. We provide a scholarship to help defray the cost of their college tuition in conjunction with the Department of Music. We share that scholarship. And they also serve as roster players, so they're paid just like everybody else is on stage. And then we use them as a resource. They are ambassadors for the CWSO, and they are required to perform 2 services per semester. So we can decide if they're going to go play at Skyward over the noon hour, if they want that during lunch or something, to raise visibility of who we are and what we do. And then we feel pretty committed to take music to people that can't get out. So we're working on a project with the Portage County Healthcare Center right now, where we send our musicians over there. So that's one aspect of what we do.
How do I get to be the next higher chair? There is some competition, inevitably, as people continue to vie for the leading roles, I guess you would say.
I think so. I would have to say not so much in our ensemble. I think, our string sections vary between 6 to 9 players deep, and depending on the needs of that particular piece or concert, Dr. Miles, our music director, determines who's going to sit where. Our concertmaster, Steve Biela, has been with us for decades, and Tim McCollum is our associate concertmaster, and likewise he was a string educator over in Marshfield and has been our associate concertmaster. Lawrence Leviton and Heidi Corcoran both share the co-principal cello chairs. And then Mary Moran and Marietta Oviat are sharing the principal viola section right now. And then we have the second violins. It doesn't mean that your second chair violin, it's just that there's a section of first violins and a section of second violins, and they just play different parts. They sometimes will be in unison, and oftentimes will be in harmony with the other section.
The brass section and the woodwind seem less deep in numbers of musicians.
Typically, yes, that's the way it is. And when you think of orchestra, the tuba isn't the first thing you think of when you think of orchestra. You're going to think of string instruments. And so and there are many pieces that we perform where it is just strings, or maybe just strings and a timpani. Sure. That's right. Now, if we were going to be playing Wagner or a big Mahler symphony, those brass and wind sections would be deeper. We would probably have 4 flutes instead of just 2. So, and then all sorts of strange instruments like English horns and, all kinds of clarinets and that kind of thing. So
who owns the instruments?
The musicians do.
But how about some of the percussion instruments?
Now, that's a great thing to bring up, because we do have this great affiliation. We are able to do what we do because of all the in-kind cooperations and agreements that we have. So through our affiliation with the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point's music department, we don't have to rent percussion equipment.
Oh, that's great. You just
So
move them
we
over,
move it
use
over.
them, and then
Yep.
move them
So
back. Oh,
yeah, what it
fabulous.
requires is it's a lot of coordination, knowing that if there's a concert at the university where that equipment will be used, that we'll have to be able to get it back and forth. But
Sure. And then the grand piano that you're working through the fundraising for.
Yes.
This is an exciting.
Well, this is a great story, and this is one that in my work for advocacy I love to share, because we needed a piano that we could use for concert purposes. Thanks to the connections that the Mitchells have at Mitchell Piano Works, one became available to us. The piano that we were able to purchase and install in October of 2014 is a Yamaha 9-foot grand piano, and every 10 years, it's my understanding that Yamaha pulls their touring pianos off and puts them up for sale. So we were able to have this beautiful instrument that Ted reconditioned masterfully, and that we house at Century, thanks to Century for making that space available for us, for half the cost of a retail concert grand piano. But we didn't have any money to buy the piano at the time, and like any nonprofit organization, the bottom line is always money. And so I thought, well, let's not stop that. Let's see what we can do. And I got on the phone and told the story of why we needed the piano, and we had one that was brought here to our community by the Mitchells. And I only had one person tell me that they couldn't do it, but call back in a year. And we had the money, $65,000 raised in 3 weeks for that piano. Well, that lit a fire, and that lit a fire to do some deep strategic planning, look at what we were doing, what we were going to want to do in the next 20 years. And the board put their shoulder behind it and decided it was time for the first major fundraising campaign in over 40 years. We have this resource, we need to take care of it. It's like not putting a roof on your house. I mean, you have to invest in it, or you don't do it. And
I think it's 89%, isn't it? I think
Yes.
it's 89% we are to the goal. What
That's
was
correct.
the dollar figure we were striving for?
$650,000 to celebrate our 65th anniversary. So, not a minor feat. And again, the in-kind contributions that we had along the way with the campaign, Dave Worth loaned us his graphic designer and came up with this beautiful piece for fundraising that has become kind of an example of what you can do with my colleagues across the country. I still take that piece when I go to conferences. But anyway, that being said, it wasn't about the money. We needed the money, but it wasn't about the money. It was about all those stories that when I called somebody and I said, I don't have anything to give you, I don't have anything to show, this is the story. And that person on the end of the phone had a history with the community, with the orchestra. And I think I knew everybody that I called personally and just dove into the story. But the stories they gave me were heartwarming. And so one of the benefits that I talk about my job is I get to go to COPS and run into one of our musicians or run into one of our audience members. And everybody has a story. Everybody wants to talk about something. And
The Central Wisconsin Symphony Orchestra certainly is a resource that so many of us have had the opportunity to interact with, but I know there are people who have never had a chance to get out there to a concert yet. Many of them are opportunities at Century Theater. I know that you also take pockets of musicians to various other venues. And I know we have only a few minutes left in the show, but what's the average price of tickets? Let's just talk about a few of those logistics, and then about a contest that we have each year for the last 4 years as we're moving ourselves through that contest for people who think that they can conduct the orchestra.
Great. Okay. Yes. What was the first question?
That's all right. No, so it's $20-something, $28,
Right. Oh, ticket prices.
$30
Right. Yeah.
for a ticket.
Right, because we have so much in-kind contribution, contributed help is we're able to offer our most expensive ticket is $25, but with taxes and ticketing fees, $27. We do have senior pricing at $20 and then student pricing at $10.
I think those are really important messages. Many people would have discounted themselves already, and I think it's much more affordable than many might have first considered, Ann. You
Right,
know?
you can get a season ticket, and a season ticket, at least this season still, you get 3 concerts, or 4 concerts for the price of 3.
Yep.
Right, and so we figure and then with the restaurant opening again at Century Muse, it's a really affordable, nice experience to go out. We do it 4 times a year.
So talk about the conductor, Patrick Miles, Dr. Patrick Miles. How long has he been the conductor of yours?
He's been with us since 2002, and so quite a long time. Other conductors with us that have had a long tenure are Don Green, who's still a member of the community. He was chair of the music department. Peter Mickelson started the orchestra way back in 1947. It started as a Christmas concert. The community got together. So it definitely is an outgrowth of the university, but it says in their mission that they had was they don't want it to be just a university event, that this was definitely a gift for the community.
There's the integration, the question of how are we integrated? And I know that you reach out, you participate in various kinds of other public events, like even at the sculpture park, when new sculptures are unveiled, there seems to be a quartet every year.
Right,
It's just
yeah.
a fabulous thing to look forward to.
Yeah.
And you have jazz experiences over at the Scarabocchio.
We do, and that's something we call it the Scarabocchio Jazz Listening Sessions. And because it's such a great space acoustically, my husband, David Hastings, who teaches saxophone at the university, walked in and he brought his tenor saxophone in just to see what it sounded like. And he said, let's do this. So it's a place where you can go in and enjoy live jazz by professional musicians about every 2 weeks during the semester. We'll have 3 sessions during the month of November. It's very informal. You come in, you take a seat, we put the coffee pot on, you can have a beer if you want, and cookies, always cookies, and just have a great intimate experience where you're right next to the musicians.
That is a great setting for it. And folks can find out details about those particular dates on your website, I would suppose.
Yep,
Or your phone number. We'll put it across the
That's excellent.
bottom of
Yep.
the screen here.
Facebook is always a great place to check too, and we have a separate page for the Scarabocchio Jazz Listening Sessions and the Scarabocchio Art Museum. So
Terrific. Now, so I think I can conduct the Central Wisconsin Symphony Orchestra. And
We'll
when
see.
you called,
We'll see.
yeah, I'm one of 3 contestants this year to try to see if I get the opportunity by raising votes, which are $5 a vote, to raise money for the Central Wisconsin Symphony Orchestra, see if I'll get the chance to conduct. It would be a great, great opportunity. So anybody that's out there listening that says, hey, I appreciate Patty getting word out about the symphony, you can always pledge right at that website.
you can pledge right on the website, and then we've been publishing a QR code that was in our concert program. You can just run your phone over, it takes you right to our fundraising page. Make sure if you're pledging online that you, in the dedication, say which candidate, and you can vote for more than one candidate. I mean, really, this is great.
About
because,
raising money
yeah,
for the
yep,
future
yep.
of the symphony.
Correct.
Yes, so 70 years next year.
70
And
years.
So some good plans, some ideas about what will happen in the 70th
I'm not
year.
allowed to talk about that yet, but I can tell you that you are going to be amazed. I'm so happy with the programming for the remainder of this year. We've got some really unusual, great stuff happening, including we're bringing in the principal trumpet player of the Paris Opera in February for the concert that you're going to be conducting.
Oh, I hope I am. We have like 30
got right on
seconds. I
that.
had to make sure I said that. There you
And
go, Ann.
we're going to have a fanfare of trumpets around the hall because we'll be partnering with the Wisconsin Trumpet Guild for their conference in the winter. Danny Mitchell is coming back in December. He's touring with Miranda Lambert, and he's taking time out to come back to his home to do this great thing. And his arrangements are fabulous. And then Jeannie Hill, who is professor of tap dance at the university, is going to be doing a tap dance concerto in April, and it is phenomenal. The preparation going into that is incredible.
Speaking of preparation, Anne Huntoon, you are prepared for this leadership role, and this is a really fantastic way that you serve us all, and I am grateful.
Well, I'm grateful.
And
I think I'm more grateful.
And I'll tell you what, Anne, we're going to close the show, but we're going to say, hey, everybody out there, if you haven't been to the Symphony Orchestra, get a ticket, get out there, call a friend, and take somebody with you. It is definitely worth it. Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.